money because the modern Orthodox have more money, so they come around and bother the modern Orthodox for money. So, like I tell you what, when I've needed a loan, when I've needed some financial help or work, now I go to the people who got the money and the work, regardless of where they are in the mitzvah scale.
Right, but at the same time, that doesn't mean to say that those people are a higher madrega or a higher level. That's the problem I have with. Some people might have more money, right? And the people who don't have the money want to go learn, they might take the money from those who have. It's the case of Yisachar and Zvulun, you know those two tribes? Right? One worked and the other learned. And the ones that worked supported the ones who learned. And the schus, the merit from the ones who learned, covered the ones who were busy working all day and didn't have a chance to learn. Right? And such a relationship is fine. But to say that the one who was working all day is at a higher drega because they work all day and they make a great living and the other one just sits and learns and he's a bum, that's just wrong. There's no mucker in Torah for that.
What do you think about the tens of thousands of traditional Orthodox Jews who don't work in Israel and instead take welfare and study all day? Do you think it's cool to study all day if you're taking welfare?
Wait a second. Let's break this down because it's a very loaded question.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody who sits and learns all day holds up the entire world.
Unless he's a dunce and he's not really learning anything. So a lot of those guys aren't really that sharp.
Well, okay.
If he's doing great work, yeah, he's holding up the world. But if he's doing lousy work...
Everybody to his own level. But the point is, if you're sitting and learning all day, you can't criticize someone and say, oh, they're a lazy bum. Actually, they're the ones doing the work to keep the universe going. And it says, the Torah tells us that as long as people are sitting and learning Torah all day, God will keep the universe in existence. So to the suggestion of they're lazy bums, I would say the opposite. They're the ones doing the work. They're the ones keeping the universe going. And the ones who just say, I can't do this, it's too hard, so I'm just going to go out and work, that's the question.
Yeah, but they're not. It's not like they're sucking on the public tit. If they were like, if they were raising the money honorably, that's fine. But they're sucking on the public tit.
No, that's the problem. Is you're looking at it through American eyes. You have to look at through. Are you talking about in Eretz Israel, in the state of Israel? You have to understand, the state of Israel, right, is a country that has it's a coalition government, right, and from all these years, for dozens and dozens of years, no one party had a majority. It was like Likud and Labor, and they neither had a majority. They needed to make a coalition, and the most powerful third party, if you will, like the biggest third party, was always the religious parties, right? The religious parties make a block, and they make a deal. They say, listen, we're going to put you in power. You're going to be, the big mamshala. You're going to be the guy running the whole government and blah, 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 blah. And all we ask is that you let us sit and learn all day in Kollel and you pay for our schools. You can't complain, Levi, after the fact and say, oh, they're lazy. No. This is the agreement that the government made so that they could be in power. It would be biting off the hand that feeds for anyone in the country to turn around and badmouth those who sit and learn all day after the only reason why you are in power to begin with is because you made such an agreement with them. If you don't like it, then don't go into power. If you don't like Hasidim or yeshiva guys sitting and learning all day instead of going out to a job, then don't cut a deal with them and let the other political party go into power. In other words, the only way around it would be for Likud and Labor to connect together, right? Which is never going to happen, right? So it's so important to them that they don't compromise. They don't have compromise in the state of Israel. You get that 61st vote, and you smash your opponent. If the two secular parties would get together and form a coalition without the religious people, then you can say anything you want. But if they're all like contentious against each other, and they absolutely need the religious parties, then they need to shut the fuck up. And there, I've said it.
I hate the religious parties. All they do is bring shame on Torah, shame on Judaism, because all they do is go for subsidies, and
you're just jealous. You're looking at it from a very ignorant, hateful mindset. You're saying, look at these people. No, look at these people. They're smart. They made a deal. They made a deal with labor. They made a deal with Likud.
They're like public employees unions who are soaking the public tit in the United States.
Then if you don't like it and you live in the state of it, you don't have a say because it's got nothing to do with you. But if you don't like it and you live in the state of Israel, then you know what you do? You vote for Likud and you tell them, make a deal with labor and let's connect as a coalition and lock out the religious parties. But until you're willing to do that, you have nothing to complain about and shut the fuck up.
Well, my followers in Israel are starting a religious party patterned on my teachings. I'm going to be the spiritual head of this party.
You are?
Yeah, they're looking to me for moral leadership in these extremely difficult questions. And I have taught them to vote Likud and to form a bloc within Likud against making deals with the religious parties that want subsidies, which I think is all the religious parties. So as my followers gain greater and greater power in Eretz Yisrael, and as they listen to my teachings, we're going to try to reduce the number of bums who are on the public tit instead of out there working a real job.
All you have to do is combine labor and Likud, but they refuse to do it, and then you got nothing to complain. Now, the next piece was, they say, oh, there's all these bums. Here's one. I don't think you've actually said this. This is kind of a straw man, but I just want to say it. They said, the complaint I always hear is, oh, they're bankrupting the whole country. All the frummies are sitting and learning all day, and they're not doing anything, and they don't go in the army, and they just learn all day. Well, first of all, they do go in the army, so that's a bullshit, and that's been debunked a million times, because there's many, 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 many frum people who have to serve in the IDF, and they do it. And number two is they don't bankrupt the country, because it just came out in the news a few weeks ago that the state of Israel turned a surplus this last year. Did you see this?
Their economy is doing far better than the United States.
Oh, yeah.
Last 4 years.
Yeah, because it was with our money. But great investment, yeah? They didn't do great. They have extra money at the end of the year. So don't tell me that the frummies bankrupt. So there's no argument. Anyone who complains and bitches after the facts are they don't drain the economy because there's a surplus. They do serve in the war. They do, and they're there because the government made an agreement just so they can go into power. There's nothing left to argue. At that point, people who argue and they say nasty things about the Furmies who sit and learn all day are really espousing anti-Semitism. It's Jew hatred. It's ignorance and Jew hatred.
And most of the Frumies who serve in the IDF are religious Zionists, aka the modern Orthodox. So the traditional Frumies, generally speaking, are not serving in the IDF.
That is not true. That is not true. I can tell you plenty of people who you would consider Haredi who do serve in the IDF.
And what percentage of the Frumies who serve in the IDF would you guesstimate are Haredi? Or who will call it Haredi?
I don't know.
I bet it's less than 20%.
Well, I do know that the religious Zionists go in because they think it's a mitzvah to serve in the IDF, which is quite different than the attitude in what you call Haredi circles.
Well, I'll tell you what, I did not lie face down in the mud in Lebanon chasing the PLO and chasing Yasser Arafat and fighting my way through villages filled with Hamas and PLO and Hezbollah. I did not go in with my tank, with my platoon, time and time again into Lebanon to clean up Hezbollah, just so that I could come back to the United States and hear about all these Frumies who aren't serving in the IDF and are sitting around studying Torah on the public tit. I did not lie face down in the mud in Lebanon so that this would happen.
You know what I think? I think you're jealous. I think that's where it all comes from. Most anti-Semitism, most hatred comes from jealousy and ignorance. And that's all I'm going to say on that. Now, I saw something in the chat room here. I want to take it real quickly. I'm not going to read through this whole thing, but I saw a question, and it said, wait a minute. What does Judaism have to say about women taking on the working day role of a man? And I want to get to this.
Okay.
We're going to get back to what you were saying before.
Yeah. I just check my camera. Yep.
Are you good?
Yep.
And Judaism basically says like this. A man has... I guess we're talking within the confines of marriage. Let's just start there. If it's a marriage, a man has a responsibility. It's his achrayas, it's his responsibility, if you will, to